Man United is dying, and this leaked document proves it. Fergie knew this would happen. The Glazers' takeover was a financial hijack, and Man United has been paying the price ever since. How £1 billion in dividends crippled a giant, while rivals left them behind. The full story at 422 will shock every true fan. A red that once stood for fire, for rebellion, for undying glory. It coursed through the veins of legends, flooded terraces with chants of triumph, and painted nightmares for opponents across Europe. For over a century, Manchester United Football Club was more than a team. It was an empire, one whose walls were built with sweat, scars, and immortal names. But today, that red bleeds differently. Not with pride, but with betrayal. Not with dominance, but with the slow rot of decay. What once stood tall like a cathedral of football has been hollowed out by greed, by mismanagement, and by the suffocating shadow of those who never understood what it meant to carry a legacy. When Sir Alexander Chapman Ferguson walked away from Old Trafford in 2013, the air shifted. It wasn't just a retirement. It was a cosmic rupture. The man who had sculpted greatness from the raw bones of youth and ambition was gone, and with him vanished the last bridge to a culture that had spanned generations. For 26 years, he ruled not as a manager, but as an institution. He was the architect of dynasties, the breaker of droughts, the master of rebuilds. But his exit exposed something horrifying. There was no plan, no blueprint, no heir worthy of the crown. In the beginning, they tried to pretend all was well. David Moyes, handpicked by Ferguson himself, was offered the keys to the kingdom. But keys forged for giants don't fit every lock. The dream crumbled in less than a year. What followed was a carousel of chaos. Louis van Gaal, Mourinho, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, Ralf Rangnick, and Erik ten Hag, all caught in a storm they never created. And with each failed reign, the world's most famous football club slipped further into confusion. But the collapse didn't start on the touchline. It started in a boardroom. It started the day a horse named Rocket Gibraltar opened the gates for vultures to swoop in. Sir Alex Ferguson's dispute with John Magner over the ownership of that racehorse led to a cold war within United's ownership circle. Out of that tension emerged Malcolm Glazer, an American billionaire whose eyes saw only dollar signs where millions of fans saw passion. He didn't love the game. He barely understood it. Yet in 2005, he executed a financial hijack that would forever change Manchester United. Using a leveraged buyout, a cunning trick that used the club's own assets as collateral, he acquired control. Overnight, United was no longer a footballing powerhouse. It became an investment portfolio. From that moment, the club's identity began to mutate. The old badge, which once bore the words Football Club, lost him in 1998. But now, that shift in semantics revealed itself in full horror. This was no longer about Busby's legacy, nor Ferguson's discipline. This was about balance sheets, commercial growth, global tours, sponsorship metrics. The heartbeat of Manchester United was slowly being replaced with the cold mechanics of corporate enterprise. Yet for a while, the illusion of excellence held. That's the cruelest part. Sir Alex Ferguson remained in charge until 2013, and under him, success flowed as naturally as breath. Titles, European glory, the seamless integration of academy talent into world-class squads, all continued. But his genius had been masking the structural rot. The Glazers knew little of the sport, but they knew enough to let Ferguson run the footballing side while they expanded the business. But what happens when the brain leaves the body and the heart's no longer beating? In Ferguson's absence, the rot became visible. Manchester United appointed Ed Woodward, a former accountant with no footballing pedigree, as the head of operations. His background wasn't in sport, but in finance. And under him, footballing decisions were made like marketing strategies, based on brand power, not footballing logic. Players were no longer recruited for systems or philosophies. They were bought because they sold shirts. Angel Di Maria, Radamel Falcao, Paul Pogba, Alexis Sanchez, Romelu Lukaku, Harry Maguire, Jadon Sancho Antony. Big names, bigger fees, but shallow impact. Over €1 billion spent. And what did United receive in return? Scattered flashes of brilliance buried beneath mediocrity and tactical incoherence. There was a time when loyalty wasn't negotiated. It was earned. It was sacred. Ryan Giggs, Paul Scholes, Gary Neville, and even players like Michael Carrick and Nemanja Vidic bled for the badge. But in this new era, the spine was gone. No longer was the academy a factory of legends. No longer were players spending a decade or more building their careers at the club. Since 2013, only a handful of players have remained beyond 5 seasons. Luke Shaw, Victor Lindelof, and the ever-divisive Anthony Marshall among them. And with each passing season, the disconnect between club and culture grew more visible. In the past, Manchester United was a club of Fergie time of comebacks, of youth rising above adversity. But today, it's a club of leaked contracts, Instagram apologies, fan protests, and managers hanging by threads before they even settle in. Once, the words "Glory, Glory, Man United" meant something. Now, they sound like echoes in a cathedral emptied of its worshippers. And the academy, oh, how that soul was abandoned. From the Busby Babes to the class of '92, youth was United's crown jewel. But that pipeline has dried. Yes, Marcus Rashford burst onto the scene in 2016. Scott McTominay fought for relevance. Alejandro Garnacho Lascelles. Kabi Menu gives hope. But compared to consistent outpouring of top-tier talent from previous decades, the well is thin. The facilities have been left behind by modern standards. Cristiano Ronaldo himself, in his infamous interview, exposed what fans had long feared, that Old Trafford, Carrington, even the club's gym and pool had stagnated. Nothing has changed, he said. And in that moment, the dam broke. Fans around the world realized this was a misfortune. This was neglect. The story took a darker turn in 2021 when United joined 11 other clubs in a secretive attempt to create a European Super League, a closed shop that would eliminate competition in favor of guaranteed profits. It was betrayal, pure and simple. United, once a beacon of meritocracy and fighting spirit, had now become a corporate stooge willing to abandon the very principles it once embodied. The backlash was instant. Protests erupted at Old Trafford. Games were postponed, and Ed Woodward finally resigned. But the wound was already deep. For 18 years, the Glazers extracted dividends, sold shares, and treated United like a cash cow. They rarely appeared at games, rarely addressed supporters, and never acknowledged the pain their ownership caused. Meanwhile, Old Trafford, the theater of dreams, crumbled. Leaks in the roof, rusting metal, outdated infrastructure. The club that once led the world now trailed it, both on and off the pitch. And yet, despite the despair, hope flickered. In late 2023, British billionaire Sir James Ratcliffe purchased a 25% stake in the club and secured control over football and operations. It was not a full takeover, but it was enough to spark belief. A believer in structure, discipline, and long-term planning, Ratcliffe began reforms under the Ineos banner. Youth development, scouting networks, training facilities, all were placed under review. For the first time in years, it felt like someone was finally trying to restore Manchester United's soul. But even this hope is fragile. The Glazers still hold majority ownership. Their fingerprints remain on every surface of the club's foundation. Can a true resurrection occur while they linger in the shadows, counting profits and selling dreams they never believed in? Manchester United's decline isn't just about trophies. It's about something far deeper. It's about what happens when a club loses sight of what made it great. The success of Sir Matt Busby and Sir Alex Ferguson wasn't just about tactics or titles. It was about ethos, about identity, about a belief that Manchester United was more than a brand. It was a way of life. For 52 of 68 years, 2 Scottish Titans held the reins. During their reign, United won 18 league titles and every European Cup in its history. That wasn't coincidence. It was stewardship. And when that stewardship ended, chaos filled the vacuum. The Glazers never understood that. They understood business, but not belonging. They understood quarterly revenue, but not quarterfinal heartbreaks. They knew how to negotiate with sponsors, but not with supporters. For them, Manchester United was an asset, not an altar. Today, the shadow of the past looms large. Across the city, Manchester City once dismissed as noisy neighbors, now define dominance. They have structure. They have vision. They have leadership. Everything United used to stand for has migrated to the blue side. And that stings. Not just because of the silverware disparity, but because City now mirror what United once was: ruthless, organized, hungry. The irony is unbearable. So what now? Can a broken crown be reforged? Can the scattered embers of greatness be reignited? It won't be easy. The wounds run deep. The soul has been fractured. But history teaches us something powerful. After the Munich air disaster, Manchester United was broken, literally, emotionally, structurally. But under Sir Matt Busby, they rose. And not just rose, they conquered. 9 years later, they lifted the European Cup. So maybe, just maybe, resurrection is possible. But it will demand patience, wisdom, and most of all, the right people in charge. There's a reason fans still flock to Old Trafford, a reason why the shirts still sell, a reason why the name Manchester United still resonates across continents. It's because the spirit hasn't fully died. It flickers beneath the surface, buried under boardroom missteps and commercial distractions. But it's still there, waiting. And so we return to the question that haunts every supporter's soul. How long? How long until Manchester United rises again? Until the name once more sends chills across Europe. Until the red isn't just remembered, but feared. For now, there are no answers. Only echoes. Only the sound of a giant in slumber, yearning to awaken. Do you believe Manchester United can ever return to true greatness? Was the real collapse caused by the Glazers or by the void left after Ferguson? Is Sir Jim Ratcliffe the beginning of a resurrection or just another illusion? Share your truth in the comments. And if you're ready to keep uncovering the raw, unfiltered stories behind football's greatest clubs, subscribe and be part of the awakening.